I'm Renee Scherzer, and welcome to the LightWork Podcast, a space for conversations about leadership, purpose, growth, and the deeper work that shapes who we become. LightWork is the inner work that grounds us. It's the full alignment of who we are internally with the life we are building externally. LightWork is across generations, and everyone is welcome to have a seat at the table. As my father used to say, we can always throw another box of pasta in. Through this podcast, I'll bring conversations with leaders, visionaries, builders, and everyday people. We'll explore what it truly means to move beyond achievement and live with intention and significance. Now, in this opening episode of the LightWork Podcast, I'm excited to be joined by my son, Ethan. We're going to talk and have a conversation about love, growth, and who we become through life's hardest seasons. In April 2020, at 19 years of age, Ethan experienced the loss of his father, Patrick. It was after a long battle with stage 4 melanoma. While loss is often defined by sadness, this conversation will explore something deeper, the enduring impact of love, the lessons that stay with us, and the strength that forms over time. Together, we will reflect on what it's like to walk through the season side by side and how we supported one another. We will also journey through the relationship Ethan shared with his father that continues to shape who he is today. This is not just a conversation about grief, and although I did bring tissues just in case, I'm sure tears will be shed, it's about what remains and what we carry forward in hopes to help others who are experiencing a similar season. For context, Patrick was my former husband, a dear friend of over 30 years, and Ethan's father. I've since remarried to a wonderful husband of 22 years, and together we built a beautiful life and family. So Ethan was blessed with 2 sisters and then another sister from his father, Patrick. So this episode, though, reflects a chapter that, while difficult, has become a meaningful part of who we are. So fitting, May is also recognized as Melanoma Awareness Month. So make sure that you're getting your annual checks. So let's get started, and welcome, Ethan.
Hey, how are you? Long time no see.
Long time no see.
Oh, yeah, a few days.
Yes, just a few days. We just had a long trip driving in the car to Carlsbad. So always lots to talk about this. But we're going to dive right in and talk about something that we talk about often, your father.
Yep.
So we're just going to get started. So Ethan, tell me a little bit about, your relationship with Pat, your dad, before he became sick.
My relationship with my dad was kind of similar as it was kind of like a Swiss Army knife. It was a few in one, because growing up, a lot of the time, it was that I always kind of didn't fit in, whether it was with friends or any situation, even in a divorced family, bouncing between. And so having that piece, having that person that was essentially like a big brother, best friend, all in one made it so that I was super dependent on him. I was essentially like 2 peas in a pea pod or whatever. It was very much one of those relationships where it almost makes me kind of realize why it was the way it was, because it was so special while it was, because we just loved each other so much and the connection was like electric. So yeah. He was a great guy.
I always said God put 19 years of a strong father,
half decent. He was okay.
Father-son relationship, because he knew you were going to have a short time together. So, yeah. But when you think about Pat today, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
When I think about him, I always just think about different. I think that a lot of times there's a lot of people in life that will present you one thing, but then show you a different one. And he was one that was very consistent, always there for people, even when he probably didn't need to be. Yeah. But he was always there, always present, and always willing to go the extra mile. And that kind of is a thing that's a very scarce. I mean, nowadays you rarely see it anywhere. So it stuck out to me, and it continues to stick out to me, because there's not many people like that on the planet.
Yeah. Well, that's also, there's a reason why we were so close even after our divorce. He was my best friend for many years before. But yeah, when I still think of him today too, what I love as a blessing is that you carry a lot of him with you today.
Yeah.
So you laugh and you give me looks, and I think it's like Patrick through you. So I know towards the end of his life, he called you Patrick 2.0.
Yeah.
He said better looking version of him.
Yeah, better. I mean, skinnier. Yeah, he had a little skinny fat, but I mean, my name is Ethan Patrick King. His name is Patrick King, so it's like You can't escape something like that. Yeah.
Very close. So, but one thing a lot of people and, have gone through losing parents, and they go through I know so many friends that, are going through cancer, have a spouse that's going through cancer. I know a lot of people who died prematurely as well. But from my perspective, it's one thing. But from your perspective, what do you wish more people understood about losing a parent at 19?
I think losing a parent at any age, but especially 19 when you're developing, is really tough because you're in this process of learning. And for me, like being in college during the pandemic, you're kind of essentially living a few lives at once because you're experiencing your own thing with a loss, and through initial cancer and then loss, you're kind of building up towards that while also trying to be somewhat normal. And it makes it tough because that distinction between, okay, I have to go to school, do this, and then I have a person dying and part of myself essentially dying. It's a tough balance. And also the fact of having different relationships with at different people at different times. Like a mother has a different relationship with a spouse than a kid. So it's like you're kind of going through separate versions of loss. So it's almost like feels a bit isolating, but you kind of connect on the fact of the love. And I think that a lot of it boils down to the way you kind of navigate your life and making sure that you just make them proud and do them right. And that's all you really can do because it's a tough situation no matter what.
Yeah. So when death cancer came back, it was you were a senior in high school. And then it was a year and a half suffering when you were a freshman at Arizona State. So we would, film when we were moving you into college and other things. So trying to keep him involved as much as he can. But the one thing, even for a child, I think it's sometimes hard to even share it with other people.
Yeah.
You never told a soul for how many years, but even that your dad was suffering.
Yeah, well, I was living in an apartment, and we moved in a few months after he died, and no one in the apartment knew that he died. And then it went 2.5 years until I fell in love with this one girl that I told anyone about that in the first place, reluctantly. And I told them kind of jokey. They didn't really think I was being serious, but because I was just sarcastic. But yeah, it's very easy. I find a lot of times, especially my dad he didn't tell me he had cancer the first time, so it's like very easy to just suppress and to bottle in, and I think a lot of guys do that anyways. But it's like the more I was able to course correct, the less weight I felt and the better I felt, and then now you can just talk about it like nothing. Or whatever.
But you went from one extreme to the other.
Yeah, it was essentially a major pivot, and also my family dynamic with my dad and mom. Like my mom's a lot more she was a lot more share, like a lot more versus my dad. He was always very whatever. He didn't talk about his childhood or didn't talk about much of any of the stuff. So I kind of modeled a lot of that in a bad way. But then you learn to do the opposite, and then you see how it changes your life.
Yeah, I was reaching out and you were closing. And so it's different too, going through of even as a parent of what you do to help a child going through these situations. So, for you though, at, 18 years old, senior in high school, what was it like for you just emotionally also hearing about it and walking through dad's illness?
It was always the kind of thing that I like nightmares about gravestones back when I was younger and stuff like that. So it was something where I was like, I didn't think it was, but I thought there was potential always, because it's just my life had kind of always been a thing where it put a spotlight on my dad, and it made a point that I like when I was in school, always feeling whatever. So I kind of the dependency on that was a bit. I was baiting something to happen, but it made me completely rethink everything, because I was like, I essentially put all my chips in that one on that one thing, and it all went up in flames. So you kind of have to essentially restart life, and restarting life while you're growing up is a little interesting, because it's not like it wasn't like, oh, I'm married, I have kids and all that stuff. I was essentially still building myself. So building your own personality and what you're going to do, and during that time it completely shifts everything. And it's tough to explain that to other people also, because it's a unique situation to be in. Well,
and so for reference, Pat first had cancer when you were at 8th grade. And you weren't told. He didn't want you to know. Yeah. And that was stage 3. Went through a month of interferon treatments. He was a restaurateur, so he would open up restaurants, and you'd often show up, and he was extra skinny. So he lost about 25 pounds during that. But you didn't know. So when his cancer came back, and he shared it with me, he didn't want to share it with you.
No.
And so the one thing, when we knew it came back and it was in his organs, that we were like, I knew that every moment was going to be important. So I made sure you were part of every part of that journey. So you're given as much time with him as you could. Yeah. But was, for you though, I was, as a parent, it's really hard to watch your child because you want to just keep them in a bubble and not have them ever go through hard times. But was there any moments during that time that it's felt especially hard for you, or where the uncertainty rose? I wasn't sure exactly what you needed. I just did my best of trying to figure that out.
Yeah, well, it's one of those processes where, for one, losing a parent anyways, but my family divorced when I was young, so I was used to going between houses and stuff like that. So I was used to two family structure essentially. And when eventually those weekends come and they're like, hey, you probably shouldn't come over, he's not doing well, and they come, so you go months without seeing someone, and then suddenly those times that you see them, it's like, I mean, he was laying down on his bed, only being able to drink certain drinks. He couldn't eat any food, and he's barely awake. He'd like fall asleep, and he would like wince at everything, couldn't really do anything. It just kind of kept, seeing someone die is really tough. I mean, he essentially was becoming a skeleton. And so it's like you see his face and everything, and it's like kind of, you try and make life normal, but it's like it completely takes over your life, and it's tough to think of anything. I mean, there's one time we were on a trip in San Diego in 2019, a year or so before he died, and it's like trying to pick him up from a boat. He like winced and yelled, and it stayed in my mind because I was just like not wanting to let him down, not whatever, and you can't even help him or do anything at that point. So
when he made it to your high school graduation, he was at that point a skeleton of himself, but he was there. But it was I felt like that was maybe a time that was more difficult for you. Yeah.
It was just one of those times where it's like, you can't prepare for it. No matter what you do, you can't prepare for it, especially when it's like someone that you like put all your, it's like, it made it a point to where I just needed to lean on stuff that I couldn't see. It was at the point like you have to, if you don't have faith in a time like that, you're screwed. I was essentially, that was my whole thing, was just started to actually, because people talk about believing and stuff, whatever, but you have to believe in stuff when you see your favorite person die.
I felt God's hands for the whole journey.
Yeah.
So during that time, because I know there are going to be people that are listening that are going through the season, whether they're a parent helping navigate this with a child, or a young adult, or even a friend, and for what would you say in that during that period of time that you needed the most? And where was, like, I know you weren't someone who asked, so I would just pick you up at school and take you to the hospital. Pat would say, I don't want Ethan to see me. And I said, that didn't matter. We were showing up anyway. But I navigated in the best way I knew how. But was there something that could have been done differently, or what would you suggest others do if they are to helping somebody going through the season that you went through?
I think the biggest thing by far and away is listening and paying attention and making an effort to show that you care. Because a lot of times what you find with a lot of people is that they kind of use like pity, or try to use these things as a way to avoid their own guilt. So they'll say stuff, but you kind of see in their actions that they reflected different things. So it really just about asking questions, being curious, being like, oh, how was that person for you? Or what did you love most about them? Or this, that, and third. Just showing that kind of energy, because it kind of essentially keeps them alive in a sense, because like you're talking about them as though they're still there. And because at a certain point, it's going to be tough, and it is a thing that the person has to go through. You can't, they have to go through that. So just showing that you're there and showing that you care is really the thing. And I think a lot of times just by listening to what they have to say
and showing up, because a lot of people do not show up at, like, unless it's something that benefits them, they'll make an effort. But if it doesn't, so when you are in those times, paying attention to the people that show up and don't is very important, because it goes to show how they're going to be for the rest of your life. And I think it's really those testing times where you see the true people in your life are, and so those true people are the ones that got your back no matter what. Yeah, and when you were going through the time when Pat was sick and it was just getting progressively worse, what was helpful for you to get through those days?
The biggest thing is letting go. It's all, because what you can't do is you can't control cancer, you can't control death, you can't control any of these things. These things are completely out of your hands, and you learn it just one after one, bluntly as possible. Yeah. And I think that letting go and just trusting that everything, and there's this whole thing about everything will be okay, but sometimes it's okay when it's not okay, because you learn and grow through going through something like that. And sometimes life gives you stuff where you're like, you don't want it, but you realize I needed that. And through that loss and through that stuff, it was a process of just letting go and having faith for once, instead of just saying it, instead of just kind of going through the motions of going to church or doing this stuff. You're actually believing that there's something there. And that gave me peace to where after he died, I've never thought, oh, there's something that could have happened. You just, it's it's all good. It was a nice 19 years together. So
Well, one of the things I did with your dad was I made a basket and I had a list and I did all this research of things to do because I had to fix it,
Yeah.
I remember, one of the other things I made him, he couldn't have sugar, but he loved sweet. So I made brownies with black beans, and then I hated those. Peanut butter cookies that were made with chickpeas. And I know they were in the garbage. He hated them. He could still eat. But I think during that time, for just showing support and being there, I think is important. Now, you didn't tell your friends, but I know the family, those of us close, were always made sure that we were there for you. And I think that helped me navigate as well, because your father was still, even though we were divorced, he was still one of my best friends. So the things that I think too was during that time was making the times with him important. I think, you would lay by him just to spend 5 minutes with him. I remember, I think there was a day it was like 23 hours just to see him for 5 minutes. I know for me during that time, there's part of this perspective is being there for those who are still here and healthy. But, how do we make the last moments of that person's life meaningful? And I know, what was important was we had plans of what car he was going to get. We had plans of, we talked about vacations that he took and pictures and how he made people feel, that I'll touch on in a moment. Because I think your dad, as many of the faults he had, he was one of the best people I ever knew. So I was very, very honored to also have you as part of his legacy. So, if there was things that, because I think a lot of this in our story, other people can learn from. I think we learned from each other, and you and I have always been close. I think through this we became even more close. You and your father, obviously, there's different relationships, but is there anything that I could have done differently that may help someone else, another parent going through this?
I think this, and I know you and plenty of people. It's like control. It's like the desire to control everything, to try and make it to where it's. It makes sense. It comes out of a warm place, but when you try to when you try to control something like that, and at a certain point, it's like what I was saying. What helped me letting go is everyone just has to let go and let it be, because it's like with those moments, with those times, it's really just about being present with the person, being there, and I think for the person that's passing away, going through the illness, or the people that are dealing with that kind of thing that in our orbit, I think it's when you show up and be present and you make that effort, that's really all that matters, because you can go jump over hoops, bend over backwards, all that stuff, but at the end of the day, it's those times that you remember and those moments that you have with them that you carry along with them. It's not all the extracurricular stuff. So it's really the best thing is just letting go, and that's because it just makes it to where it's less of a stressful thing and more of a, hey, like, let's value these moments while we have them, because you never know.
You helped my faith grow in that too. So the night when I was very blessed that Angie, Pat's wife, who was fantastic, and through his journey of cancer and through, when hospice brought him home, she graciously allowed me to be there as well with you and your 9-year-old sister at the time. And it was beautiful. I remember one moment Angie and Gracie were there. We would take times, everyone would have their private time, and especially, spend that time with him until, for his final moments. And we were in the kitchen and you looked at me and you said, "Mom, I'm going to be okay. God prepared me for this." So if you don't have faith, I think this type of moments, it does help you, and you helped me grow in faith too. But it was such a blessing. I mean, that's a rare thing for a former spouse to be able to be there
with the current spouse,
for his final moments. But where when we think back about from as a mother and what part of my control too, I think, was difficult because I couldn't fix the situation for you. I would love to have kept you in a bubble and have this never go through, or neither of us to go through this. But the use of humor I thought was really important and funny. And I think one thing your dad used to do, he'd be the one that whether it was a funeral or a wedding, he would say stuff that everybody was thinking, but no one would say, and we would all laugh. And I remembered, when we were in ICU in January 2020, the cancer had gone to his brain, and I had physically dropped to the floor when I heard the news and got to the hospital as soon as I could. I was in Louisiana, actually, at a conference. But his room was all about laughter.
Yeah.
And that's where he really honed in on how, you were Patrick 2.0 and that you were the better looking version and the smarter. And we had a lot of laughs. The joke was always that all the treatments were going to make him look like Brad Pitt and give him a 6-pack of abs.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that was not the case.
Didn't work out that way,
but I think that was a big thing for us was that, there was always laughter. And I think around him, and it was, how did he make people feel? And so, when you think about the relationship you had, I know there was this codependency you had, like you said earlier, you alluded to, where when you were younger, that drove me bonkers. But there was this closeness. And I really do think God had that orchestrated for a reason. But you had this codependency and about the, how you showed up and for one another and just the love that you both shared. And so, is there something in that, that was about your relationship, with Dad that shaped who you are today?
There's quite a bit. I mean, the nose is number one, but there's quite a bit when it comes to there's not a lot of people out there you see that are willing to consistently put themselves kind of below. And I think he did it in ways that are good. And there was a certain line where he didn't believe in himself a lot of ways. So, but he was really selfless when it came to doing anything. I mean, we school events, and I think he brought a bunch of pizzas because he owned a pizza place.
He did that all the time.
He did stuff like that, or he would help out, get extra stuff, or rally the troops for doing all different kinds of stuff, for drives, for whatever, any type of thing.
I showed up, he filled up my car.
Yeah, he made an effort always, and I think a lot of times that you see a lot of people and you hope a lot of people that they're willing to do it, but they talk and then they don't show up when the one comes. So with him, the whole thing was about showing up and being there for people and making an effort, no matter who the other person is, to be your best self and to not waver and not be like a snake or not try and take advantage of things, but to be the best version of yourself. And also to not take life too seriously. Throughout any of his things, he was always very sarcastic, jokey, kind of funny, and brought that levity and brought that thing to life that I feel like a lot of times people get very serious, get very locked in, and lose sight of life is supposed to be fun and enjoyable, and it can be even when times are tough. And he kind of made that really evident that, hey, humor and all that stuff is kind of always present. It's not just, when things are nice and easy, but you can kind of find it in those tough seasons. And I think that reflecting that and doing that in my own life, it's made it completely different. So going through this, and now 6 years later, still having a kind of sense of humor, it's I'm good with it's he could be upstairs, downstairs, in heaven or hell, and we're chilling. He's in one of those ones, but it's just knowing there's no stress there's no whatever, there was no pressure from him, and I think living with that kind of peace and all that stuff is really important.
He lived a fantastic life. I mean, I remember one time coming home when we were married, and he came jumping out doing a karate chop out of the closet because he had signed up for karate. I mean, he had just no outfit on. He had no skills whatsoever.
Nothing, no coordination.
But the one thing, I think the generosity, I think you've never told a soul. I found out because I went in your trunk one day, but you at 19 years old, started running through Tempe and noticed the homeless there. And so for the last, actually, even before Pat's passing, you've been giving out homeless bags. You go out, run 2, 3 or 4?
A few times a week, and you fill out these bags, just grab waters, grab whatever stuff I do, apple juice, little crackers, or I'll make something. If I bake something, I'm okay, I'll bake brownie, maybe I'll have one for myself, and I'll cut up that whatever and portion it up to where it could fit, or I could maximize in the backpack and just run up. And I think the biggest thing is not just giving or doing something, but also talking, actually caring and talking to people and seeing them. Because a lot of times people walk through guys on the street or guys, girls or whatever, and they kind of almost treat them like trash. And I think a lot of times just by showing that you care, talking to them, listening to them. Now some of them, they talk crazy because they're on stuff, but I think by listening and giving them that, it just gives them hope, and it gives them ability to feel like they're seen, which could be more important than the food that they're getting in the first place. So I think just showing that and making that, it just kind of was those things where you see it and you're it's just not right, and just at least making a little bit of effort and showing that you care is
6 years and 3 at least about 3 times a week.
In LA and all that stuff.
You definitely took that with, when you were in LA as well.
So you got some crazy stuff going on there.
Definitely the generosity, I think that's important. And the one thing that he did, I think, is a lesson that for us all to learn, that was, he was in the restaurant business. He was a restaurateur. And, first of all, he never corrected someone if they thought he was a cook at the restaurant.
No, he was
a manager.
Yeah,
he never said, I'm the owner, never said that. But we would, a lot of business businesses when someone would leave, employment and go and start their own career, the former, bosses would, take it personal and not even acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Well, we would go support their new venture because Pat was a mentor to them. And, we'd sit at the bar and they would want to comp the tab because Pat had done so much for them. And he's like, not only comp it, he's like, charge me double. Yeah. And so we would pay double and then tip on top of that. So that was something that, I know he carried with me. And I've always tried, to be charitable and see people. And Pat was kind to everyone. He never looked at anyone differently. And so I think from you carrying how you carry forward, I think those traits, and you're doing it so beautifully well. And I think, with Pat, I just had to call him and whether I needed, a bunch of wine or pizzas or whatever, he never said no. And I think that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I just adored him for that. So now, when you think about, moving forward and growing, and it's like, how has losing dad changed the way you see life or the kind of man you want to become?
It's completely changed everything, because what it does, the biggest thing is the perspective, because you could go through loss and you could be stuck in it. You could essentially be like a car in like mud and you're like the tires revving, but you're not moving anywhere. You could let it dictate your life. And so for me, the whole thing was trying to live not like, in spite of this, but using it as a blessing, because going through any difficulty is a challenge. And the way you navigate it, the perspective you have with it determines the way it could impact and kind of shape the rest of your life. So I'm very lucky to have gone through that and gone through bullying, gone through any of the type of stuff that has allowed me to develop faith. And faith gets this whole thing where everyone's thinking it's like, religious, whatever. But it's really just about believing and letting go and not trying to control, because we're these random humans that appear on a planet and we try to control it, which is whatever. But it's like letting go and just maximizing the time you have left, and knowing that peace is present everywhere. And I learned through his death that peace can be anywhere. So why should I worry about sitting in traffic, or if I'm in a line, or if I stub my toe? Like, what's the point of worrying or stressing about things I can't control the future? Yeah. Just about being present, maximizing the moment. Because I remember with my dad, I'd always be the most present because I wanted to maximize that time. So trying to live that in my own life and maximize the time, it completely changes it. And it puts you go through tough times when you have this perspective, because you get tested, but you see the beauty of it because it allows you to do a lot more with your life than you ever thought.
And never not say something.
Yeah.
I think using that time. I remembered, even get off the phone with him one time and I was like, bye, I love you. And then I'm like, wait, I told my ex-husband I loved him. And then I said, wait, I don't love you. Well, I love you, but I don't love you that way. And he started laughing. He's like, Ray, you always said you love me. He's like, you said that all the time. And it's funny because I tend to even have said that to clients. Yeah. Because I do, I love people. And, so, when you think, during his time of COVID was, his loss was during COVID. So that was a unique environment navigating that. Definitely. We got to honor him because there wasn't able to be a service, that we walked his steps through high school and where he worked and, all of his old stomping grounds and old homes. But also, little did we know, a year later after Pat's diagnosis, your other dad would have a cancer diagnosis. Yeah. And so, 2 months after Pat's passing, we were in California for your other dad's cancer treatment.
Oh, yeah.
So how did that type of, second
win, it was like a birth. Yeah. Well, it was kind of interesting because me and my dad, we both shared an Apple ID. So on my computer, I was in class in college, first year at like some like random, whatever, I forget the class, but I was getting these notifications from the messages on my dad, and my dad was talking to like someone he worked with or whatever. And he's like, oh, did you hear that such and such's father or whatever got cancer? And he was like, oh, whatever. They're going back and forth. And I'm like, wait, I know that by process of elimination who that is. And so actively while he was dying, and this was like mid to late 2019, so he's kind of going through it, and you could tell with him. Then I see with Step that like it's like going through that, and it's like I kind of at a certain point was like, whoa, like that's kind of crazy, because I was like, no, that's him talking about whatever. I was like there's no way that whatever. And so it kind of made me sit back and be like, wow, there's something to this. And it almost felt as though like it was kind of a certain thing from God to be like, hey, like this is not going to be what you think it is, and you're going to have to like just let go and trust, because it's like you could get your head wrapped up and be like, oh, there's this and this going on, but it's like just by being patient. And I didn't really tell anyone that I knew. Also, like it's like kind of the thing where I kind of just was like, okay, I'll just whatever, which is not a good thing. But it's like
it took Dad Chris like 3 or 4 months to tell everyone.
And I just quietly just knew about it. And it's because at that point, it sounds weird to say, but it almost felt tame. It was a tame thing in comparison to, that what's happening about it. I just knew that he was essentially dying. So it's like, this felt like, it just felt like, okay, this is normal. It felt normal. Yeah. It felt like something. I was like, okay, that makes sense. It's it worked out better, but
has gone through his, at some point I'm going to have him on a podcast, but he went through a couple bouts and he's doing extremely well.
He's doing good. Yeah. He's in better shape than Pat, but a little more muscle. Shape. Yeah. But it's,
he did do the High Rocks competition, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So but it's interesting because you do know, and I was sitting there thinking, even preparing for this, if Pat knew we were doing this, he'd be cracking.
Yeah, it'd be really funny.
He'd think this is really funny.
Yeah.
So, because, I think in these times we know life is not finite. And I think when you go through tough times, and I wish people didn't need to go through tough times to realize, to appreciate the moments and to not take life so seriously, to always see people. It doesn't matter, title or, where people fall in the status chain. It's just look and see people. And, there's something that, one of my dear friends and consultant, Ushi, said to me one time, and she was like, what would make today a perfect day?
Yeah.
And immediately when you say, what would make today a perfect day, everyone immediately thinks, whether, I'm going to be on the golf course or I'm going to go, take a trip.
Done.
But it's like the what you learn in these journeys sometimes is it could be a simple, I go and have lunch with a friend.
Yeah.
I tell someone I love them, something so simple. And I think that's
yoga.
what some of this, go do some yoga. I need to do more of that.
Yeah.
But if you could speak to someone, that is your age and is going through something, what would you say to them about the journey and what you learned? And maybe if there's anything you wish you could have done differently.
I think bigger than anything else is being present, because being present is it's got a rap where people talk about it, but they don't really live it. It's like with faith, where people talk about it a lot, but they don't live it. And I think by being present and being able to just, distraction free, just sit and feel through it, whatever it's good or bad, whatever you're going through, feeling through it all, if you have to cry and be sad and cry. If you have to be mad, be mad. If you have to be happy, be happy. It's just feeling through and letting these emotions go through, and really being receptive and open to them is the biggest thing. Because loss or going through any sort of trauma or anything is going to be tough, and you don't want it to be tough for 50 years of your life, because you push it off rather than, it's tough in the initial and then you kind of live and it becomes normal. Because eventually, if you push off this stuff, if you kind of it's going to mess up other parts of your life. It can mess up relationships. It can mess up all this stuff because of the fact that your inability to deal with it. I saw it with my dad, or heard with my dad, of his own stuff going through the loss of his dad, and how he was very scared of vulnerability and being open with certain stuff, and how it kind of affected certain relationships. It led to certain things, divorces and stuff. And how I'm like, okay, I don't want to do the same thing. It's like, okay, so it means that it's going to be tougher in the short term, but the long term gets benefited. So I'll go through hell and high water if it means being able to be more present and be there for the people in my life for the rest of it. And sometimes it's really tough, and you're like, I just want to quit, or I want it, whatever. But those are the times we hang in, be patient, being patient and present. That's the key, and it'll all work out. And it kind of shows you that you're a lot more capable of doing things than you ever could have believed. And it's just by just being there, just sitting in the boat and going down the river. It's you don't have to do anything. It's just letting go.
You taught me a lot going through it too.
Yeah, and it's likewise. Yeah.
Yeah, it was. I think we became close because we never stopped talking.
Yeah,
and we still talk and we still cry and we still honor him, and we share the journey. And your father, Pat, did lose his dad at 25.
Yeah,
and he didn't talk about it, and he never dealt with it.
Didn't really know his name or anything.
Ended up in our divorce.
But quiet as a mouse. Yeah.
What you encouraged me to do, and what I started doing then too, was journaling and writing about it, and actually sitting in the pain and feeling it. We go through life running so fast, and we never deal with it.
Yeah.
We're programmed to keep going. And, for me, I just kept working my way up the ladder and hitting all these outward goals, but inside, still having that trauma inside. Yeah. And so the journey that I went through, and even more so, since Pat's death, and then, your grandfather's passing, and Chris's, dad's, cancer, I started journaling and grounding and finding that, that strength within. And it was through all of that slowing down. And you were a big inspiration in me doing that. And so, with this, I think the other lesson that I would love anyone listening is, that was it's kind of tethered through this, was forgiveness. one of the blessings that, and I kind of say it's one of my superpowers is forgiveness, is, anyone who has a former spouse or any family member, anything that may have, by any accounts, done them wrong or made them angry or hurt them, just forgive them and send them love and move forward and just meet them. If for me, I look at everyone as a child of God, and not that I'm perfect at that, but the one thing that, the one thing with your dad that I was very blessed of is that we were friends from beginning, went through a very difficult divorce, but then we were friends. And what a blessing that you knew your life to have, parents. You had 4 parents.
Unique mix.
Unique mix. But everyone, there was just love, and and there was, I don't know how I could have gone through this. Yes. But there was no way we could have gone through the loss of your dad in the way that we did had we not, both me for Pat and Pat for me, having that forgiveness. And so I think that is something that I hope everybody, is encouraged to do. So, before I go into this closing question, just as a reminder, melanoma, what started as a mole on Patrick's back is what eventually took his life. And so, his wife had noticed it on the beach, and he hadn't been getting a skin check. So, that was when it was first diagnosed at stage 3. And so get checked. Everyone get checked. Ethan and I go every December.
Every year,
and I go. So definitely get checked. And this is May, and I'm wearing black because that's the black ribbon for melanoma awareness. But for the closing question, this is my first podcast, so more to come. But one thing that I always talk about that I learned from, it was Tara Moore in a book, Playing Big, about your future mentor. And so my closing question, and what I want to close each conversation this same way is, look ahead, close your eyes, look ahead, who you are, who are you 10 years from now? What do you wear? What are you doing? Where do you live? How do you go about the world? And once you get that person, I'd love you to answer the question, what would that future version of you want you to know today?
There's a lot of glitter. There's a lot of glam. It's my thing for myself is it's the progression of letting go and having peace. It gives you a lot of confidence, which is a strange thing that people don't really talk about. Okay. And so it's like you keep having bigger and bigger dreams and aspirations. And for me, it's like I just see myself just doing anything and everything. And I see myself in a different country. I see myself doing all sorts of stuff and just doing it without inhibition, not trying to do it to please anyone, but doing it in the space of, I'm just going to do my best and see what's possible. Because a lot of people, and I put a lot of limits on myself growing up and thinking I sucked or thinking I was like I was like just be in the corner, recluse, like I don't matter, I'm a burden, this and third. And so changing that thinking, it completely shifts your life. And so it's like for me, I don't want to put limits on anything I could do, I don't think anyone should, but a lot of people just do because they're too scared. But taking away the fear and really believing, I'm like, I see myself doing a lot of.
Take out a fear. And
I think,
your future self in 10 years from now, I'm expecting some grandkids too.
Yeah, so, maybe we'll see. The sisters,
future version of you.
The sisters will have some before me, but it's I see myself doing some stuff. So you never know. But I never would have thought 10 years ago that I'd be here. It's a lot of stuff has happened in 10 years, so you never know. But it's about just being patient and seeing where you go and not trying to control everything.
Well, it took me to my 50s to figure out patience and peace and all of that. But now I'm here and I've never felt more fulfilled. And I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to be your mother.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
But you got through it okay.
You're great.
Up, but I was a little concerned. I even brought a box of tissues. But, this was really great. Thanks for being my first guest, Ethan. And I think we're going to have more conversations, and in closing, the life we are building isn't just about where you're going. It's about who we become along the way. So go out there and spread your light.